Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Dragon Prince review. This one's going to be for the first 3 episodes of The Dragon Prince Season 2. The episodes are called, what's this? A Secret and a Spark, Half Moon, Lies, and Smoke and Mirrors. Just looking at the screen over there with the episode list. I'm doing this as I'm watching through the series, so I haven't seen, obviously, episode 4 through 9 of this second season. I'll just be going through it like this at 3 episodes at a time, so expect 2 more videos covering this season, and then probably some afterwards coverage as well. But I thought this was a solid start. Obviously, I don't think it feels necessarily like the start of a season, in that these first 3 episodes, I think, really should have been bolted on to Season 1. And then I think transitioning from here going forward, that sort of feels a little bit more like a season has ended and now we're entering a new season now. 9 episodes ending right in the middle didn't feel particularly great, but that's just I suppose how they've chosen to sort of like chop up the show season by season. This is book 2 Sky already, which I think fits. You know, I think Callum used the cube and showed that the Dragon Prince is sky magic. That's his connection to a kind of primal source. But what I liked about these 3 episodes was that in a way it was this almost like contained arc of the group's interaction with Claudia and Soren. And they did a really good job at, I think, developing it, because they didn't spend too much time in terms of like multiple episodes and then they arrive. They just arrive fairly quickly and we immediately deal with them kind of, you know, both lying to the group, but also in a way having to deal themselves with if they want to go ahead with what's happening here. In that you can see the hesitation from both of them. I thought it was very interesting that it was Soren who was the one who was more on board with just going ahead with the plan, and it was Claudia who was the one who was kind of more holding back and kind of more emotionally invested with the idea of like betraying them, that would actually like hurt her as well. Whereas I think based off season 1, I would have said the reverse, that Soren was the more, I suppose, in a way, you know, because he's sort of simple-minded, you know, I think have the more like really clear right and wrong, and he wouldn't necessarily just go ahead with it. Whereas Claudia seemed like she had more of a sort of link to her father, and because of that she'd be more like likely to just go ahead with his plans, and like ultimately she does. But scenes like the sort of dates with Callum did a really good job at least like as the audience having you question like, what if they did just go with them, what if they just like teamed up with them straight away. The emotion, especially because like she really did feel honestly emotional after she told Callum what happened to Harrow, which was a great moment because they timed the scenes perfectly with Rayla committing to I have to tell him, but then Claudia kind of actually gets in first and reveals that, but just because she actually is close to Callum and wants to tell him. And again, I like that they didn't go overly down the drama route with this, in that, you know, Callum just gave Rayla a little bit of the silent treatment for just a little bit, but then when it came for him to tell Ezran the situation, he couldn't do it too, and because of that he understood the situation that Rayla was in, and now they're both sort of in that position of like, how are they going to actually tell Ezran that his dad is gone? So I think that's an interesting one, and that combined with the fact that Claudia gives Callum the letter back. He has that back. He specifically doesn't want to open it yet, which I find interesting, because he doesn't feel ready for whatever it is. Now, obviously, realistically, it probably is something about like who his actual parents are, or something along those lines, or a hint about that, and it would be a hint about his, you know, lineage, destiny, something like that, and that's kind of what he's trying to figure out, because in terms of Callum's arc here, we get him and magic. With the Primal Stone gone, he doesn't have any way to do magic, and he feels like he's finally found his calling, what he's actually good at, talented at with magic. But all he's told here is that by the illusionist is that humans basically can't use magic except dark magic, and the Primal Stone was the only way he could have done it. And they seem to just leave it at that he's just kind of stuck with that, and there's a huge stigma around using dark magic, and he specifically chooses not to learn it here when given the opportunity. Obviously from the trailers we know he at some point is going to use it, but I think there's a deeper story to be told there than just, oh, he has to use dark magic to use any sort of magic. I assume there'll be some sort of reveal about, like, dark magic works that way for a reason, and I think it's probably going to be revealed, like, it's not just inherently negative, like, you can choose to use it in that way, but there probably is a way where, like, it's more, instead of, like, ripping magic out of things, maybe it's more of a kind of sharing magic, the kind of, the power of, I suppose, uniting with different magical beings and stuff like that, because they basically imply here with a little bit of, kind of lore detail here that, okay, every being that is magical is born with a connection to a magical source, and it seems to be a level of, like, understanding based on what they said, and that, like, the way she explained it was that, like, it was this sort of philosophy about kind of reality and appearance, which is her connection to moon magic, rather than it being, like, any sort of, like, physical type thing. Again, like, they probably need to explain that a little bit more, but just the idea that, like, they later showed it fairly clearly with him, using the cube on both the dragon and then bait, and we've seen that cube used before to, like, reveal, okay, this is what this magical being's connection is, this is what this magical being's connection is. But then humans don't seem to have that. But the fact that they can even use dark magic is sort of, telling in a way, because they're doing something. They're using a form of magic to even suck the magic out in the first place. Whereas at least with the Primal Stone, there's, like, the idea of, like, okay, it's an object, so anyone can use it. They're not directly, like, using their own source of magic as such. So, I'm very interested to see where they go with that, in terms of, like, it'll be, I assume, some sort of a negative when Callum uses dark magic, but I don't see them just leaving it at that. I don't see them going down the road of, like, he's corrupted, this is the way that it is. Some deeper secret, I think, about it is going to be revealed, about the discovery of, like, what it is and how it came to be, and especially if, like, any of the other, like, species of the world have any responsibility for this, because going back to, I suppose, the very beginning of the series and the kind of lore they gave us right at the start, they definitely established the idea of, like, when the Dragon King was killed, all of the elves, or basically magical creatures, pushed the humans over to one side of the world and basically separated them from the magical world. And was that basically what disconnected humans from magic, or did they have it before? Or is it just that humans aren't inherently magical, minus the dark magic that they're able to use? There's something deeper here that I think is definitely there to be told. Focusing again on the whole, Soren and Claudia interaction. I like the setup for it because, obviously Soren is a bit more focused on actually trying to, take them out, make the accident happen like they were told. But at the same time, it's not like he's just out for blood or anything like that. He's just trying to accomplish this mission, and it seemed like if anything kind of got in the way, he was fairly quick to just accept that the plan wasn't going to work. The whole zipline thing, I thought was fairly telling as well, and then combined with the actually, I think, quite well done and nice romantic kind of moment between Claudia and Callum. It really made you, like, made them into complicated characters. Zuko, like the Zuko, of course, is always going to come to mind just because of the creative team, and I think there's the potential for that, like with both of them, to have that arc of kind of transitioning from being, sort of on the bad side of things, and even though they questioned it a little bit, still going ahead with the bad plans, to actually siding with them, in that there is that moment where they're like, oh, we want to come with you, but Rael obviously sees through it as a trap. When they have to potentially go back and report to Viren that it was a failure, his reaction could shift that completely. It could go both ways, I suppose. It could double them down on needing to go after them. They've already done the betrayal, so what's the problem with going after them further? Or if he has a very negative reaction and they see him becoming corrupted, it could shift them over to their side and wanting to help out. So they're, I think, fascinating just because they are such, likely candidates to do the, bad to good character switch, and because they have history with our main characters, there's an importance there as well, because I suppose they tease just a little bit, the little bit of a love triangle of like Callum and Rayla, or Callum and Claudia. He seems to obviously, I think, like Claudia more from the get-go. He seemed to have the whole idea of like, I don't really see her in that way, but maybe something will develop beyond that from here on out. That's what's very interesting, because they had the hug and it's beginning to get there, and that like a large part of what Callum was saying was ultimately that I know her longer than you, therefore that's why I'm focused on her. There's going to need to be development to make that happen, but like right now I'm not getting like romantic vibes between the two of them just yet, at least. But there's, I think, vague hints that they might be going down that road. But I think the fact that actually Claudia and Callum actually have a fairly good relationship, and outside of all of this, their father kind of Viren being such a kind of threat in all of this, that actually seems like a fairly valid relationship that could actually happen. But we'll have to wait and see. Like, has this betrayal really caused a rift in that? And that'll come, of course, in if they're going for any sort of like a redemption arc for Claudia and Soren. On the other side of the story, we had a couple of little plots. Just at the very start, we had Amaya fighting some Sunfire elves on the kind of border, and that was to set up the fact that there's a kind of threat incoming, more so than the one that we had at the start of the series. Very cool fight scene, actually. I thought it was really, really well done. Just setting up that leader who had the actual, was it Sunforged kind of sword? That was, obviously, you can cut through basically anything. That was very, very, very well done fight scene. And it was just to set up the fact that Viren is kind of in charge, but he is not the king. And he wants to basically make decisions as the king, but can't because all the advisors want to get the actual, one of the princes or, something else like that in place, and not have him make decisions for everyone else. And that he wants to bring all the kind of lands together, but they're disagreeing with that because they want the princes back. So that's where we get the whole thing of him manipulating the guy with the crows to send out the letter with the king's seal, and that seems to be actually happening. And then probably one of the most interesting things is the return to the plot with the dragon mirror, and Viren wanting to see what's inside of it. He's doing magical spells on his eyes to try and see clearly, but then seemingly randomly it just activates, and he just sits there seemingly for days just looking into it because it finally activates. It's on this room. He sees a fire activate, and then he sees someone walk in. And this is where we get introduced to this star elf. I don't think we've got an official, at least the show, I think itself, hasn't officially revealed the exact species name here yet. Race, whatever you want to call it. It is something to do with star. I think they touched on it on social media before this. I think they also named the character, but I don't think in the show they've named the character yet. she hasn't spoken or anything like that. But again, really cool that this is a reference, but again, back to the first episode. This is the person with the kind of Starfield kind of skin who opened up the scroll to basically tell us the lore in the opening episode. So there's a sort of like ancient significance here to this type of elf. It seems like it's the rarest form of elf, and that immediately is interesting because again, one of the forms of magic is star. That's to me of the ones that they've mentioned, that all of the ones that exist, star definitely comes across as the most interesting because, okay, moon, we've kind of explored that a bit, but what does it mean by star? Like directly referencing like the cosmos. It's not sun or it's not moon. It's basically the rest of kind of space. That to me is very interesting with regards to what they're going to reveal about the nature of that form of magic, and given how ancient, it seems like this kind of species is, that's going to be very interesting to see. Now, he initially, I think, thinks it's like a one-way mirror, and I don't know if the reveal right at the end was meant to kind of show that she knew it was actually both ways, but either way, he seems sort of shocked by the fact that the hand touches the mirror and it turns off for a minute. So I don't really know how exactly it's going to transition with regards to, like, does the mirror allow them to talk to each other? Like, will something change the next time they kind of see each other? It's an interesting reveal, definitely, that, okay, Viren is now going to potentially get into contact with this star elf. What exactly does that mean? Because obviously we end on the other side of the story with them getting the dragon out, and they're again on their way to kind of return it to its mother. That's the ultimate goal here, is of course to get Zim back to his mother. We had a minor plot with Ezran kind of being put in charge of teaching the dragon how to fly, and just some fun little moments of like them kind of jumping off little rocks, cliffs, using the zip line to get the effect. But really, what actually gets the effect is being on the back of the kind of moon phoenix, and him actually feeling that feeling of the wind being in the sky. So they're subtly moving along the progression there. That I assume at some point this season we probably will see Zim fly, but they haven't done too much with regards to, I suppose, outside of just this character is important because we know he's the Dragon Prince. Zim's actions haven't directly told us anything about like what he can do necessarily. Earlier on in the season, they did mention that there are other dragons. Like countries are reporting that they're like shadows overhead and dragons are sort of back. So we know that from the trailer, but we're just getting subtle confirmation of that early on. I think that's most of what I want to talk about. Like it was very much, like I said, a continuation for me of the first season. This really felt like what should have been like some of the final episodes of book one, and now it sort of feels like we've moved away from that kind of section of the story, and now we're moving into, I suppose, the next stage of the story, and that there's been this escape, and now let's say where we go from here. So I'm very interested to see what exactly they do next. There's like 6 episodes to go, so it's not too many, but there's a lot of stuff in the trailer that looked fairly intense, so I think there's still a lot to come going forward. But I'll be back in a couple of hours. We'll see exactly how long it takes with the next video covering episodes 4, 5, and 6, and then a final video today covering episodes 7, 8, and 9. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the first 3 episodes. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on these opening episodes. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.